Hello again, welcome to another edition of Where the 99 Leads. It's a program brought to you by the University of Pikeville, and we talk all things regarding the University of Pikeville, both academically, athletically. We'll discuss the Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine, construction and building projects around the university, and of course, different clubs and organizations. Today, joined by one of the most important resources for students and families at the University of Pikeville, and that's financial aid. Judy Bradley, UPike Director of Student Financial Services, our guest again. And Judy, you and I go way back.
We do.
And we won't talk about that.
We're too young.
Yes, we are. But an important resource for students, and we want to talk about that and some deadlines that are oh so important that we've talked about many times. But before we go there, for someone that's tuned in, that this is their first meeting with Judy Bradley. Let's talk about your background and how you arrived at the university.
Well, I first started at Pikeville College as a student, the one and only school that I attended, and graduated with a degree in business administration, a concentration in marketing, and went on my way and developed a career in banking, and then went on to the hospital. And I ended up doing a big U-turn and ended up right back at Pikeville College as an employee in public relations, and then been fortunate to move on through into financial aid, and that's where I am now at UPike.
And you've been there for how long now?
I was, let's see, marked my 15th year, Andrew.
Right. And you've met a lot of students, you've met a lot of families, because financial aid, it's a large part of every student's experience. A majority of students receive some type of financial aid at the University of Pikeville, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Not a thing. As a matter of fact, we pretty much see every student, whether they're a self-pay, and you don't see a lot of those these days, but there's some form of financial aid, whether it be a student taking out a loan, a grant, or scholarships. We see every student that darkens our doors.
And Ben, there's a misconception that a financial aid student is not necessarily someone who's on a full scholarship. Maybe it's an academic scholarship. Everything's paid for. It still comes through the financial aid office.
It does. Every scholarship, regardless of whether it be academic, athletic is talked a lot about, but we've got students just right now behind our cameras that have scholarships for film and media.
Sure.
So there's so many different avenues and so many different ways that students can get financial aid.
Right. And I guess before we go any further, as this show will be about financial aid, many different options that are available for students, those deadlines that are oh so important that families, parents, and students all need to complete. We probably should begin with someone who's tuned in. Maybe they've got a high school student who's a freshman, or maybe they're a senior, and this is their first experience with paying for college or with the college experience. Let's define what is financial aid.
Financial aid, Andrew, is a series of types of aid that can be what we call need-based, and we're going to talk about the application that determines that need in just a few minutes. But you may have, again, the scholarship, which are the types of aids that students earn at their own merit, whether it be an academic merit or an athletic or musical, whatever it might be. And then, of course, you have the self-help financial aid, and that aid means the self-help of a student loan.
Sure.
Or maybe a student will get the federal work-study program, and that's where they actually do a job and work out those funds.
Right. And financial aid comes in many different forms, and that's why it's important to know someone in financial aid that has experience, that's been there, that knows the many different options that are available, and you're able to help students work through that process, to help families that are dealing with that maybe for the first time. Because after two have gone through the process, I feel like I could almost do this myself. I could sit beside you and help other students out, because families learn.
They do.
Every little detail about financial aid, because it's very important. College is expensive.
It is.
I don't care where you go to school. It's expensive for families, and that's why financial aid is there. With the definition of financial aid, many different options are there. What does a student or family need to do to get things started?
Step one.
Yes.
It's the wonderful world we call FAFSA.
Right.
It stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. Any student or parent that hears my voice that plans to attend, and this is where it's hard to conceive. We've got our academic year of 15-16 is our next academic year.
Next fall.
Next fall starts in August for most schools.
Right.
It's now it's now time to start considering that financial aid application for that upcoming academic year. And that is based on household size, household information, whether it be income, assets, based on this current year.
Sure.
So you're looking at 2014 that influences that FAFSA result or that FAFSA calculation for the upcoming academic year of 15-16.
And it's really looking ahead, but it will be here before you know it. And the reason it's important, deadlines that are coming up just after the first of the year. We're going to talk about that. If you're tuned in right now and you have a high school senior or you have a college student, this is important information. If maybe your student is younger, this is important information for you to know in the future how important some of these things and these dates are. And that's why we want you tuned into this program to be able to take full advantage of all financial aid opportunities that are out there. We've got an expert here on the show today, and I can tell you she's walked this college student's parent through the process at Heimer too as well. Judy, we talk about deadlines, we talk about the crush, we talk about 2015, it's hard for me to even say.
It is.
2015-16 school year, which is next fall, but oh so important are the deadlines that are coming up. How important is it? Does it matter if something's done in January when applications can begin, or they want to wait till they get their taxes done?
So important, Andrew. So many times I hear students, and it could be even a current student at UPike that may have forgotten when they were just a high school senior how important it was at that point, and they listen to us.
Sure.
But a lot of times your students will think, oh, we have to wait because the tax information is included in this application.
Right.
And how are we going to put that in there when the taxes aren't even available yet or filed yet? And as well as I do, many times your employer, they don't even have to get the W-2 statement, earnings statement to you till the end of January. So the deadline that we give our current students and those students that we talk to that are entering college for the first time, brace yourself,
Okay.
is January 5th.
Wow.
Very, very early. That's why the government gives the student the option to file this FAFSA. There's a section there where you answer the questions about the tax return.
Right.
And it's going to ask you a question in the very beginning. Have you completed your tax return?
Right.
That question will give you options.
Yes.
And when you answer that, you're going to say you're going to will file.
Right.
And that will file allows that student and family to estimate their FAFSA
Okay.
based on where they think they're going to end up on the 14th earnings, as far as the year of 2014.
And because it's all done electronically,
Yes.
Online, then it's a very simple process, by the way.
Very simple.
It's a form that maybe for a first-time student parent, it may be a little intimidating, but it's really not. It's a very simple process that you can walk through on your own. And when you get to that section, simply will file. And then when the tax information is received, you simply go and adjust.
Update it.
And update that. The numbers are adjusted then. It may or may not change anything, but you've gotten your student in queue by getting that filed early.
Yes. And let me kind of explain. When a school receives the FAFSA result, that's when we know that student's serious about attending our school.
Sure.
And, of course, I'd like to say everybody's going to put UPike on that FAFSA.
Right.
But that's when I know that student is interested. Excuse me.
Students, of course, many times a student can buy the T-shirt, go to the bookstore, okay, this is where I'm going to school, but until that form is complete, then it's a different story. That FAFSA is completed, and while that FAFSA is important, you don't have to just include the University of Pikeville or any other school. Big Sandy Community Technical College may be another. That is an option for someone that's wanting to stay closer to home. Or perhaps it's a state university or another college somewhere in the region. There's a limit, but there are several spaces for a student to put the school code on. How many can they list?
I think this year's maybe 10 different schools.
Yeah, so you can include those as options, and each of those schools have a code. You enter that code. The University of Pikeville's 01980.
001980.
001980. That's the code for the University of Pikeville you'll want to include on that form. Of course, that's the FAFSA. January 5th, the deadline. Simply go there. We know your tax information won't be ready. The government does too. But you want to go ahead and complete that form online, and you'll want to include will file when asked for the tax information. Other information that's needed for first-time filers of FAFSA, they need some passwords, some codes
They do.
to get through there.
Correct, and I apologize for the cough.
You're right.
But basically, to do the FAFSA and to sign it electronically, you know, that's all it's about. It's electronic, so of course you have to have the PIN number.
Sure.
That, I guess, is first step. Students and parents need to go into pin.ed.gov. That's the federal website where they will ask for the government to give them a 4-digit PIN number.
Sure.
Very simple. If you have, let's say we have an adult parent that has more than one child in college, they will use that same PIN number.
Yes, you will.
And you're used to that.
I still know it.
Most parents do. And then students, of course, if there's more than one student in the household, they, of course, yes, have to have their individual PIN numbers.
Right.
But that PIN number is used later on once that student's in college. If they do decide to take out student loans, there's other things that are required for them to complete, again, electronically,
Right.
and use their PIN numbers again for.
Very good. We're going to talk about some different types of financial aid on this program as well. Joined by Judy Bradley, the UPike Director of Student Financial Services, our guest on today's show as we talk about the upcoming school year. And of course, we're just now finishing up the first semester of this school year, but the FAFSA form for January 5th deadline, that's important for the next school year. So if you have a high school student currently, this is important for you. Someone maybe who has taken a year off and they plan to start school in the fall of 2015, this is important for you. If you have a younger student and you just like to receive more information about the process, this is a show for you as well. Judy, the UPike Office of Student Financial Services is partnering with other schools for a special event. Tell us about College Goal Kentucky. What's that mean?
College Goal Kentucky is a campaign by the state, and basically what that is, it's an opportunity where schools throughout the state can be a host school, and we open our doors and we invite any student that needs to file a FAFSA.
Sure.
Typically it is used for those entering freshmen that are high school seniors,
Right.
to bring their families in, to come in and let us assist them in filing the FAFSA. And you know, Andrew, we talk about this deadline. Let me explain why we're so adamant about getting this done early.
Okay.
Most of the students within our listening area are Kentucky residents. That's where it gets down to, we basically run out of money. And what I mean by we, that's the state.
Sure.
We have seen over the years, I would say in the last 45 years, it's moving back closer and closer to the 1st of January.
Right.
We're talking both state grants. If you're at a private school like UPike, you are Pell eligible. That would be the federal grant of the Pell Grant. If a student files their FAFSA, we would hope by the 5th of January, no later than the 10th,
Right.
they would be eligible for both the CAP grant, which is an assistance, and we'll talk about that a little more, but also as a private school like UPike, they would get the KTG grant. That's almost $5,000.
Sure.
And when we're talking grants, that's free money.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so very important for everybody to listen and to understand why we are encouraging them to get this application filed very early before the state runs out of those funds.
And the state of Kentucky, like many states, they're facing budget concerns.
Absolutely.
The lawmakers and governor, they come together, they set a budget and said, this is the dollar amount that we have available for these grants. And those are only available until they're gone.
First come, first serve.
You got it. So that's the importance of being one of those early January filers. Typically, I know we've talked in the past that by March, it's gone.
Oh,
And-
that was
and-
even years ago.
Years ago. And
Now
and
it's
now,
February.
as budgets have tightened, it's even earlier.
Yes, more
That's the
students, less
importance.
money.
That is the importance. Get it done now.
Yes.
As soon as you celebrate the new year and you flip the page on that calendar, start thinking about your FAFSA. Get it started. The earliest they can file the FAFSA is
January 1st.
January 1st.
Yes. Many times they say, right, I've had parents and students tell me, 1201, we're going to go out there on that website and start filing our FAFSA. And many of them do. But it is just that critical that they get the FAFSA on file. And, you know, one of the other things, if I might mention, with the will file, the estimate of that income. Many times students and parents will ask me, well, how do I even know how to estimate? How do I know how much I'm going to make in 2014?
Right.
My advice on that is look at the last pay stub for that year. You did get a pay stub.
Sure.
Or if the income is comparable to maybe what the household made in 2013, look at the last year, the 2013 tax returns.
And I believe it's based on adjusted gross
It
income.
is. So it's very, very important to do that estimate as close as possible. That just makes common sense, because before I had my coughing attack, I started to explain that when a school receives those results, that's when we know in that financial aid office that that student's serious about attending that institution. And that's when we actually start putting all those financial aid awards together in what we call the award package. It's not just state grants that they may lose. It could be things like work study. We have what's called FSEOG, that's a federal supplemental grant. Well, institutions have a certain dollar amount that they receive.
Right.
So that's kind of a first come, first thing too, because when I get those FAFSA results January 5th, I'm going to give all that money away, and then maybe by the time I get to those students that applied in February or March, I may not have any of those funds available.
Because the budget, it trickles
It's just,
down.
yeah.
It's not just the state, it's the federal, it's dollars that are allocated to each institution. So only so many dollars there.
Yes, sir.
College Goal Kentucky at the University of Pikeville, when is it?
It is 2 different dates.
Okay.
We are hosting at UPike Saturday, January the 3rd.
Okay.
So we're still within that time frame.
Right.
From 11 a.m. till 2 p.m.
Very good.
And we will have signage. We're in the admin building on the 2nd floor.
Sure.
And then we'll be there again that very next Monday night for those that may not work on the weekend. We will be there on the 5th, which is Monday, and that will be the same location, 2nd floor. We'll be available then from 6 till 8.
Very good.
So when they come, when the student and or parent, you could come as a family,
Right.
make dad take you out to dinner or whatever. But students can come on their own. You just need to be prepared with the information for that will file, as well as both PIN numbers, so that we can help you get that electronic signature in there.
Very
Because
good.
that's so very important. If they file the FAFSA and they don't sign the FAFSA, it's just like you never filed.
Right. You have to have that. You have to have those PIN codes. Very easy to get that PIN code online. You can get that done, and you only need to do that once. You'll carry it with you your entire college experience. And as a
You'll
parent,
remember it.
as a parent, you will remember that PIN code. It's been years and still do. Judy, some that are tuned in, they have no idea what we're talking about, the many different types of financial aid that are out there. But let's get started quickly. We'll just touch on each of these, not in a great deal of detail. But first, let's talk about federal aid that's available.
Well, the federal aid, and that again is what a lot of times people will think this FAFSA is the only thing that it will give them eligibility for.
Right.
That's a misconception. Again, we've kind of already talked about institutional aid at different variations. We've talked about state grants. But the FAFSA is a one-piece application per se that schools use. Some schools may have another individual, but the FAFSA is what gives you potential eligibility for all these things that we'll discuss. Federal is just what I've already mentioned. We've talked about the Pell Grant, and remember, anything that has grant on it, that's the one you'd love to have. It's a need-based award based from the FAFSA result. Students have to display need, and that's what I call the granddaddy grant.
Right.
Everybody'd love to have Pell Grant, but some are not eligible.
Right.
Other financial aid at federal level, maybe again the work study that we've talked about. Some schools will also have FSEOG, like I mentioned, that UPike has a certain allotment every year. There are other programs that some schools may participate. We chose not to, and that is a TEACH grant. And that is specifically for those students that decided to go into the teaching career.
Right.
It's set up in such a way that the students at that point of receipt, it's a grant, but there's so many eligibility requirements to keep it a grant once they graduate and start going to work,
Right.
or it turns into a loan.
Right.
So that's something that they really want to investigate when they take that grant. And then, of course, the other is the federal direct student loans that students have eligibility for.
Right. Of course, ROTC program at the University of Pikeville, federal ROTC funding available there, federal work study program also available, and then direct subsidized and unsubsidized direct loans. What's the difference between
Okay.
the two?
If you can just remember in the name itself, subsidized, that is just exactly what it is. The government is subsidizing the interest of that loan. And what that means, Andrew, is the student takes the subsidized, and there's a certain dollar amount depending of availability, depending on what grade level the student is in. So basically, in simple layman terms, it means that it's not accruing interest, or the government is subsidizing the interest for that student while they're in school. The unsubsidized means just the opposite. That loan, in other words, is starting to accrue interest as soon as that student starts using it in college. So what I advise the students to do when they choose, and you can choose one without the other, but if they decide they want to do the unsub loan, I advise them to try to keep that interest paid up
Right.
while they're in school, so that 6 months after they graduate with either loan, they'll go into repayment.
Right.
You don't want to go into repayment on that unsub loan and have all that compounded interest on it.
That's federal money in a quick look. Let's take a look at the state financial aid grants and other programs that are available.
The state grants, again, is what's kind of pushing this promotion that we're doing today.
State money shorter than the federal money.
Absolutely. But state grants, again, that's free money, and just know that the state has a certain allotment. And as I said, there's a lot more Kentucky students filing FAFSAs, applying for financial aid at these colleges, and it's a first come, first serve. So basically, the KTG grant is the one that I love. It is a grant only for private schools, and that grant is set up in such a way that we call it the equalizer grant,
Right.
because it allows me to be able to be more competitive with my private school tuition, more in competition with those state tuitions. And it very, very often will surprise students and very, very much please them, because I can be very competitive with my financial aid package with that.
And that's the one, that's the grant. The KTG grant is the one that will absolutely blow parents away, because they think that the University of Pikeville, it's a private school, it's going to be much more expensive than a state school, and it truly does
It
equalize.
truly equalizes.
I've seen it on an individual basis. I've seen it make that difference and make the University of Pikeville competitive with state schools who talk that they are the most affordable, and it's not always the case. You have to look closely.
Absolutely. And you know, we're a school that we do not charge fees. A lot of times you have state schools that have a larger base of student fees that very often will add up.
Including application fees.
Absolutely. We do not charge that. And the other grant that, again, is my second best is the CAP grant, CAP, College Access Program. That is a grant that, again, supplements that federal Pell Grant. So if a student, again, files the FAFSA early enough and they get any amount of Pell, it doesn't have to be a full amount, it could be $400 in Pell, and they file, again, early enough to be on that list with the state, they will get the CAP grant. And then the combination of those two, Andrew, if you combine those two state grants with the eligibility of a full Pell student, one that is the most needy, UPike has the most dynamic promise to students that you couldn't find anywhere. It is called Pikeville Promise, and what that is basically if we have a student with full Pell and they file early enough to get CAP and KTG, UPike will guarantee their tuition is paid.
How about that? It's an incredible program, and Governor Patton and President James Hurley originated Pikeville Promise, and it's something that truly makes a difference and can make the University of Pikeville affordable for any student. Also, another state program that's still around, I wondered how long it would be, and that's the Key Scholarship.
Key Scholarship
Still
still
being
going
funded.
strong, still being funded.
Good.
Very, very wonderful program. Again, it is for students from the state of Kentucky. These students start earning their Keys money when they're ninth grade. It's based on their GPA, each level of high school, and then they get a supplemental additional bonus to that Keys award based on their ACT score. So it's a great tool. Students can take it to any school that they want, and as long as they're going to a school in the state of Kentucky, it goes with them.
Very good. That's a quick recap of state funding. Talking with Judy Bradley, Director of the University of Pikeville Student Financial Services, our guest on this show, as we focus on financial aid. And you may be tuned in and say, okay, it's December 2014, and you're talking about the fall of 2015. But truly, we're talking about the first week of January.
Weeks.
It is just around the corner, and the importance of filing early your free application for federal student assistance, FAFSA.
FAFSA.
That's what it is.
Yes.
Get it filed. If you're interested in the University of Pikeville, the code 001980, that needs to be included. And any other school that you might have an interest in needs to be included on that FAFSA as well. The important thing is get it done early,
And
January.
yes, Andrew, if I could add, yes, I would love for everyone to give me the opportunity to quote, and that's the whole, it's kind of like buying a car.
Sure.
Give us the opportunity to quote a price.
Yeah.
But one of the other things, and I like to be helpful, and that's what I do here at this time of year, is travel the region,
Right.
teaching the high school seniors how to file the FAFSA. But if I could add to that, that 001980 is a private school code. Please, if it's not 01980, make sure that you put a private school as a selection of that on that FAFSA, so that state grant of KTG is reserved for you.
Right.
Because many times we see students that don't list a private school on their FAFSA, and they don't get the opportunity to hold on to that KTG money if later on they decide, oh, I don't want to go to that state school, I want to do a private school. So that's again, that equalizer grant, that's a large amount.
Sure.
And we want them to have that benefit.
And money set aside for that student when
Yes.
they include the private code
Yes.
on their FAFSA.
Absolutely.
That money is then earmarked
For them.
for them until they decide to go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So be sure and get that. So many different programs that are available. You mentioned just one as far as institutional financial aid, that being Pikeville Promise, but many different types of scholarships are available.
Mm-hmm.
Academics, of course, athletics, everyone knows about those. They know if you have a tremendous ACT score and a certain grade point, you're going to get some academic money. And that's one reason some students fight so hard through high school to maintain a GPA and to score well on their ACT.
Absolutely.
Is for that academic money. But many different scholarships are available in many different areas at the university, and then also outside scholarships. Not quite the same push as January 5th for the FAFSA, but still you want to get those filed early as well.
You do, very much so. You know, FastWeb is a national search that many times students will use for outside scholarships. So if people are listening to this, I do encourage them to try that as well. But again, it's that first come, first serve. Sure. It's, you know, it could be something as simple as a 200-word essay, but you've got to get it in there early because those funds deplete as fast.
Some other places that we have come across in our years of doing this show, employers, companies that your parents may do business with, insurance companies sponsor scholarships
Yes.
for customers, cell phone providers provide scholarships for their customers, employers may have scholarship programs for employees' kids as well. Look into all of those. Every source, it all goes to pay for your college education, and there are many different ways out there. The big push, FAFSA, get it filed immediately after the first of the year. Remember, will file when you get to the tax information. College Goal, Kentucky, dates January 3rd and 5th.
We are going to be open the week of the 5th. You know, we'll be back in school.
Sure.
My office, we're going to turn into a big hospitable place. My office will be open from 7:30 a.m. till 7 o'clock p.m.
Wow.
Our doors will be open, light refreshments will be served,
Yes.
and we will be there to assist anyone in filing their FAFSA for next year.
Very good.
The whole week.
Tremendous. And that's the week of January 5th. Mark those dates on your calendar. January 1st, make sure you're prepared to file your FAFSA for the upcoming school year, the 2015 school year. Judy, we're out of time, but I know you'll be back real soon as we begin to talk about 2015-16 financial aid, and we'll make another push on
Thank
the
you.
FAFSA as we get closer.
Andrew, you've always been so supportive, and I really think it makes a difference when you have a parent like yourself
Yep.
that's been there, done that,
You bet.
and you do realize the difference that it does make. And we're not here just saying it to sound like we know. I promise we do. I see
been there.
we've been there, and I can tell you, I see so many students that come in heartbroken when they realize too late, but they realize that they did wait too late,
Sure.
and it makes a big difference
Absolutely
in
does.
that affordability.
Get it done early. Get in line for the money because it does run out. Federal money, state money, institutional money, it could even run out. Get those things filed early and be in queue for financial aid, the awards that you certainly deserve. Make those plans to get those filed the first week of January. We'll talk more with Judy Bradley, UPike Director of Financial Services, our guest on this edition of Where the 99 Leads. It's a program brought to you by the University of Pikeville, the leading university of Central Appalachia.